All right, it's mock draft season time. It's time to fix the New Orleans Saints. Look, they've done some good things already. They've already got the quarterback solved. All their needs are at the low-value, low-cost positions. So they can address a lot of those in the draft. We'll get started. 29th overall pick, which the Saints just acquired. I'm going D-line. It's the biggest need left right now. It's defensive tackle. They just lost a couple more guys in free agency, so you have to shore that up. I'm going Siaki Ika, the big defensive tackle from Baylor. He's over 330 pounds. Look, don't pay attention to the Pro Football Focus grade on this pick. This is a guy who's going to come in day one and be a run stopper. He's a guy who's going to be a day one starter. He doesn't need, look, he's maybe not the highest upside guy in the draft. He's not going to be a, 10 to 15 sack guy in the NFL, but he's going to stop the run and shore up some of the deficiencies that the Saints have right now. Second round look, they've got to get younger and better at running back. We've seen Alvin Kamara have some issues. We know he's going to be likely suspended. Whether he plays most of the season or not, they need some help behind him. So how about one of the most talented all-around backs in the entire draft, Jahmyr Gibbs, originally at Georgia Tech, transferred to Alabama for his last season, had tons of production. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he can run between the tackles. In the third round, it's going to be interesting for me to see how they address wide receiver. There's talks that Michael Thomas could be coming back. Even if he does, I'd like to get some more depth and kind of replace some of those guys. We know Marquez Callaway's probably not going to be around next year. They need some more depth at that spot. A.T. Perry's one of my favorite big-bodied receivers in this whole draft. He played at Wake Forest, played in a very high-production offense with Sam Hartman as his quarterback. He's a guy who's going to go up and get it, but also has good speed to make plays down the field. Look, when scouting directors and these guys make decisions, they like to go with players they're familiar with. So the next couple of picks are going to be guys that I've seen a lot of in college. First one is Dorian Williams at the linebacker spot, a guy from Tulane, very rangy linebacker, was a part of that historic Tulane team that won the Cotton Bowl this year. He's a guy who can give you some depth. You just lost Caden Ellis in free agency again. There's a guy who can kind of fill in some of those depth positions. You're not going to ask him to start right away, but he's going to give you something long-term. The next pick, I'm going to go to the Sun Belt Conference. Gerard Clark, another defensive tackle. You can't have too many of them. We've mentioned the Saints already lost a bunch of them, so who's going to shore up that position? Clark's a guy with good size, also some athleticism. We saw him play against UL a couple of years back, way back, and remember in the COVID season. He's a talented player who, again, you take Ika in the first round, now you back that up with some more depth. Next up, I still want to address the safety position a little bit. And so right here in the fifth round, I think a guy out of Memphis, Quindell Johnson, is a guy who gives you something in that area. Now, look, Tyrann Mathieu was much better down the stretch, and Marcus May had an up-and-down year with some, injury issues as well. So Quindell Johnson, another guy I'm not going to rely on to start right away, but he's going to go a long way in securing more depth in the back end in the secondary. I've got two picks left. They're both seventh rounders. How about a guy I saw a whole lot of, a UL Raging Cajun guy in Andre Jones? This is a guy who was a wide receiver in high school, goes over and switches to defensive end, and was just developed phenomenally by Coach Billy Napier and, of course, Coach Dez in this past season. His production was maybe the best in his final season at UL, and he's a guy who, again, still pretty new to the position, so he can come in, not a lot of pressure to play right away, and he'll learn under one of the best defensive ends, maybe in Saints history, Cam Jordan. So I think Andre Jones is a high upside pick late in the draft. And lastly, again, it was the theme at the two biggest needs are defensive tackle and running back. So how about taking two each? I'm going with Travis Dye, a guy from USC, another guy who I watched play against Tulane in that Cotton Bowl, a guy who was a transfer coming over, playing with Caleb Williams in his final season in college, and can just do a lot of things, especially out of the backfield. I like his kind of versatility as an elusive guy to, again, complement and hopefully play behind Alvin Kamara. But if Kamara is suspended and misses some unknown number of games during the season, maybe he steps in and plays a role early on. Also a good contributor potentially on special teams.